Beyond Love and Hate. 1. Ikikuro failed to fully parry his master's sword strike, and though the wound was minor, he received a slash from his left cheek to his chin. Ikikuro was well aware of his guilt. After all, despite being provoked, he had engaged in an immoral affair with his master's favorite concubine, a grave sin. He accepted the sword his master had raised as inevitable punishment and had no desire to resist, though he did try to evade the blade. What grieved Ikikuro most was the idea of losing his life due to his own folly, so he wished to escape if at all possible. Thus, when his master accused him of infidelity and attacked, Ikikuro used a nearby candlestick to deflect the sharp sword. However, despite nearing 50, his master, Saburobe, was still strong and vigorous. Unable to counterattack, Ikikuro's only option was to defend himself, and yet he failed to block the first strike, which landed on his cheek. But once he saw his own blood, Ikikuro's mind underwent a drastic change. His calm thoughts quickly turned wild, like a bull pierced by a matador's lance. If he was going to die anyway, concepts like the world or master-servant relations ceased to matter. The man who had once been his master now appeared as nothing more than a dangerous beast, intent on threatening his life. With a fierce determination, Ikikuro shifted to offense. Shouting "Ooh!" he hurled the candlestick at his opponent's face. Saburobe, who had let his guard down, expecting Ikikuro to remain defensive, was caught off guard by the sudden attack. The candlestick struck his right eye hard. Seeing his master stagger, Ikikuro quickly leapt forward, drawing his short sword. "You dare to resist me?" Saburobe roared in anger. Ikikuro charged in silently. The master's 3-foot-long sword clashed violently with Ikikuro's shorter blade 2 or 3 times. Locked in a desperate struggle, the two exchanged a dozen or so strikes. Saburobe's sword grazed the low ceiling a few times, hindering his ability to wield it freely. Ikikuro seized this opportunity. Realizing his disadvantage, Saburobe attempted to retreat outside, taking 2 or 3 steps back onto the veranda. Ikikuro, seizing the moment, pressed forward. Saburobe, in a fit of frustration, slashed downward with a cry of "A." But in his haste, his sword became lodged in the beam hanging between the veranda and the room, cutting 2 or 3 inches deep. "Damn it!" Saburobe cursed as he tried to pull his sword free. In that brief moment, Ikikuro lunged and slashed across his master's side with all his might. At the moment his opponent fell, Ikikuro regained his senses. His mind, which had been clouded by excitement, finally settled, and he realized that he had committed the grave sin of killing his master. Overwhelmed by regret and fear, he collapsed on the spot. The night had passed into the early hours. The main house and the servants' quarters were far apart, so it seemed that, other than the maids in the main house, no one was yet aware of the dreadful fight between master and servant. The maids, fainting from the violence of the fight, had gathered in a single room, trembling in fear. Ikikuro was gripped by deep remorse. Though he had lived a dissolute life and was known as a reckless young samurai, he had never committed any crime worthy of that label. Least of all could he have imagined committing the ultimate crime of murdering his master, the gravest of sins. He clutched his blood-stained short sword. Engaging in an improper relationship with his master's concubine and then ending up killing the master when he was about to be punished, there was no good that could come of such a situation, no matter how he thought about it. As he gazed at the still twitching corpse of his master, Ikikuro silently resolved to take his own life. At that moment, a voice came from the next room, as if someone had just escaped a great pressure. "Goodness, I was so worried about how this would turn out. After you were sliced in two, I thought it would be my turn next. I've been holding my breath behind the screen, watching the whole time. But, really, things turned out well, didn't they? Now we can't waste a single moment. Let's grab the money and run. It seems no one else has noticed yet, so if we're going to escape, now's the time. The wet nurse and the maids are shaking in the kitchen, so I'll go and tell them not to make a fuss. You, look for the money. The voice was trembling, but the speaker, using her willpower as a woman, seemed to be forcing herself to appear calm. Ikikuro, having completely lost his own motivation, was revived, energized by the woman's voice. He stood up like a puppet moved by someone else's will rather than his own. He reached for the Polonia tea cabinet in the room and began searching the drawers here and there, leaving bloody handprints on the pristine wood grain as he did so. But by the time the woman, Oyu, the master's concubine, returned from the kitchen, Ikikuro had found only a single 5 ryo packet of silver coins. When Oyu saw the money, she remarked, "Such a small amount won't do us any good." She then furiously rummaged through the drawers herself. In the end, they even searched the armored chest, but not a single gold coin turned up. "That miser must have buried it in a jar somewhere," she said bitterly, before quickly bundling up any valuables, including clothing and inro, seal cases, in a cloth. Thus, the adulterous couple fled the home of Seiburobi Nakagawa, a bannerman from Tawaramachi, Asakusa, in the early autumn of the 3rd year of the Ine era. Behind them, Seiburobi's 3-year-old son, Jitsunasuke, slept soundly in his nurse's arms, unaware of his father's untimely death.